All right, what is up, guys? Crypto update. Want to talk about Bitcoin, Ethereum. Want to talk about S&P 500 a little bit as well. That's dumping as crypto looks like it could be coming up a little bit more. I'm in this trade down here over on FAIRDESK. This was a trade setup given in advance. I give this one in advance. Sometimes I give the exact call out. Sometimes I just give the setups. I want it to be really educational. I don't want people to just blindly follow, a random guy trading. I want you to, learn how to do it yourself. Obviously, with good risk management, all that type of stuff. This is a trade over on FairDesk, as you can see right now, and I added to that trade. Let me actually just show you. Added to that trade based on kind of this setup, potentially breaking upward a little bit more. We're bouncing off of the point of control, so it does seem like we could break up a bit higher for a few reasons that I'll discuss in just a second here. So yeah, if you want to sign up for FairDesk, link down below. We give away a $100 trading bonus every single week to one person who signs up, deposits any amount, and trades with my link. MEXC is great as well, for especially if you want zero limit fees with my link. So check those out. Let's get into the analysis right now. And basically, when we look at, so the first thing we want to look at here is essentially these money flows are really high. They're still kind of pointed upward in a lot of these time frames. Maybe on the 4 hours starting to come down a little bit, but other than that, I mean, you don't have a bear div here really. I mean, you do have a bear div from all the way back here, but that's farther away. I think the next bearish div, that may be where, and I think Crypto Bullzone was talking about, potentially if we have another jump up, we'll probably get at least a good kind of scalp out of this, a good kind of scalp short out of this. And I agree. Yeah, it will probably maybe 35.6, maybe even up to 37. People were talking about 37. You got a logarithmic spiral line at 36.2. So yeah, but as of now, VWAP is still coming up, which does kind of look good for the continuation. Now we do have a bear div, I believe, or actually technically not a bear div in the hourly. And we're coming up, we're bouncing off of that, point of control on the fixed volume range that we could look at right here. Draw this out, and then bouncing off of that. So maybe, hopefully, hopefully for the long position, we can do well. Now, I do have my stop loss for this guy at entry point right now, so it's kind of a risk-free trade. So if we do break downward, get stopped out in profit, and then I can look to potentially re-enter. So that's what we're looking at right there. And then you do have kind of a double bottom and a trigger wave forming on the 15 minutes. So that may be what brings you up higher. And in these bullish kind of environments, sometimes you do. More often than not, you do break up higher. But be careful. Sometimes, who knows, anything could happen. Obviously, you come down to 34, retest that again, then you jump up. So just keep that in mind. But as of right now, look at him go. He's doing something a little bit right here. So let's move on to ETH. Well, let's just look at, I just wanted to show you guys maybe some of the real high time frames real quick. Weekly, your RSIs are still curving upward. No signs of, no toppy signs just yet. That's looking pretty good. 2 week as well, money flow coming up. I mean, this is pretty wild. This is pretty wild. I was talking about, we're about to get that money flow crossover into the green. That was, I mean, we're ahead of schedule based on this. This was August 2020, and then you went parabolic. So it's kind of like that scene in The Big Short where Brad Pitt, he says, like, look, don't be celebrating that we're shorting the housing market. If we're right about this, tons of people are going to lose their jobs. It's not going to be good. So it's kind of like that. If we go parabolic all of a sudden right now, oh man, I can't imagine what's going to happen in the world. So just keep that in mind. It's kind of one of those areas like, you don't want to have too much Bitcoin, but you also want to have some exposure, in case things get crazy. Not financial advice. So let's move on to Ethereum a little bit right here. This was the main Wyckoff accumulation. We had our jump up. I mean, it's still not impossible to fulfill this into the end of the year and come down to 1,300 or something. But it does look good in the weekly right there. Let me go to a chart with more stuff on it. Bullish div in the weekly. We dodged a huge bullet with that. I mean, that was looking bad in the weekly. Now we're looking good. Trigger wave on the 2 week. I mean, man, it's hard to get much more bull money flow coming up. I mean, this is like bull market type stuff. It's hard to get much more bullish than this. The only more bearish thing is the fact that the S&P 500, which we'll talk about in a second, probably will come down farther. As of right now, obviously ETH is bleeding, quite a bit against Bitcoin, as you can see right here. May see a little bit of relief, but it is showing major, major weakness against Bitcoin. So just keep that in mind. As of right now, volume area, low. It seems like it wants to keep that area. VWAP coming up there. That same kind of trigger wave that we were talking about in Bitcoin potentially could bring us up higher. But when you look at total 2, and total 2 is all of crypto minus Bitcoin, minus Bitcoin. So this is ETH and all the altcoins essentially, not including Tether. It is just bled against Bitcoin. It looks like it probably will continue to bleed further here. I think this area is going to be huge. Now I'm starting to dilly-dally in, every week buy a little bit of Ethereum, at this point because we've already dumped down a lot against Bitcoin. I do think we probably will come down lower, and I do think this will come down lower. But once we get to this point, I think this is kind of the main time to start dilly-dallying, start DCAing into some of these altcoins, probably from, when this hits maybe in November up until kind of pre-halvening, diversified portfolio of altcoins. So that's ultimately, excuse me, what I'm looking at right there. And then if we look at, a couple of these, Cardano, obviously short-term, may get a bull div on the monthly. Money flow is coming up on the 3-day trigger wave right there. And money flow coming up right there. And then a lot of this is coming up a little bit. It looks like it could continue. Solana, I wanted to just take a quick look at because, I was talking about 40 potentially. Get technical target around 40. It does look like you're probably going to make it that high, man. Yeah, this is pretty wild. Solana at $40. So it does kind of look like you got that shot. And then when these gapped RSIs finally start to come back down, then you could see somewhat of a pullback. So it is crazy. Things have looked, more bullish than they have for a while. If you look at AVAX, a lot of it is kind of the same. Just looking at a few of these, trigger wave to the upside, it looks like you got some more upward momentum. And then, just like Bitcoin potentially coming up to 37K, it looks like these will continue to come up. But I think they'll still, kind of bleed against Bitcoin on the way up to potentially 37K or wherever it may be. Now, if we look at Bitcoin dominance, this is another thing that just keeps, going up and up and up, and no major signs of slowing down. I would say no major signs of slowing down. I'm looking at, like I've mentioned a lot of times, the 2-week, these gapped RSIs to come up a little bit further and then potentially give us a bear div here. This is what I'm looking for potentially a top, potentially a good place to get into altcoins. This combined with this hitting kind of this level on total 2 minus USDT versus Bitcoin would be a good place, I think. Now, let's wrap it up. Let's look a little bit at the S&P 500 and the DXY. So the S&P 500 making lower lows. This is the lowest. I think it was one of the worst days for this in a while. This in the NASDAQ too. And, we're at February levels. We're at the beginning of 2023 levels. So we've come down a good amount. We've come down since that July high. We've come down about 9%. So that's quite a bit. That's significant. And when you look at some of these larger time frames, it isn't a bearish div on the, it's not a bearish div on the monthly, but it's still a very bearish trigger wave essentially. So it's still a bearish, pattern, bearish setup, continuation, red X there to potentially come down farther. Now, if you did something like this is the case to potentially make a little bit of a lower low into mid next year. That is favored to the place where the Fed may pivot. So keep that in mind. You could have a first half of 2024 generally being red. Money flow coming down out on a lot of these. The 2-day could give you a bearish dip, but I don't think that means anything until it kind of prints. Daily coming down, and then yellow X's on the 12-hour. I don't think that's a good sign overall. So it does seem like the S&P 500 will come down farther than there, which is very interesting if Bitcoin continues to kind of pump up as the S&P 500 comes down. And then if you look at the Dixie right here, kind of bearish on the weekly, but you're coming back up on the 20-hour, and then not a bullish div there, but RSI is kind of coming up. It's kind of looking more like with money flow in a lot of these, the trigger wave on the daily, just realize that one, that you're going to get up to that technical target 109, and that would probably coincide with the S&P 500 going down. Generally, this coming up would be bearish for Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's kind of in its own orbit a little bit here. Bitcoin's in its own kind of orbit a little bit, breaking away from some stuff. So It wouldn't surprise me if this does come up higher. It wouldn't surprise me if this does come up a bit higher. Anyway, guys, if you want more info, exclusive TA, check out the Aldo Empire VIP Discord down below. Also, check out the link to FAIRDESK if you are interested in trading, if you are an experienced trader. Really good exchange. We announce the winners of the $100 giveaway every week. MEXC is great as well, especially if you want to do some of those small cap trades. Lanacor is an expert on that. You get access to Lanacor stuff in the Discord as well. We are doing one-on-one sessions, Lanacor and CBZ. KMAG, Nightshade, and myself. If you guys are interested in one-on-one sessions, we are offering that as well right now. So check it all out. Really appreciate you guys. Hope you guys got something out of this video. If you enjoyed it, smash the like button, subscribe.